I'm Nina Lenton. Welcome to Creative Conversations, where I ask my guests, what does the word creativity mean to you? So I'm here with Al Booth, who is a broadcaster, podcast producer and live event host. Hello, Al.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm good, thank you very much.
So my first question was actually going to be, so you do all those things. How did you kind of arrive at that combination of stuff?
Accident is the honest answer. Well, no, I always wanted to work in radio. So I remember doing the school run, and we're from Yorkshire, my family and I, from Yorkshire. And my dad was in the prison service, and he got seconded down to Worcestershire. And we went to school that was a few miles away. So on the school run, Mum used to pick us up in the car and we'd drive home. And it was when Steve Wright in the afternoon was on Radio 1. That's how old I am.
Yeah, well, me too.
And he had Mr. Angry, and he had all these characters, and he was just having a laugh. And I was like, that sounds amazing. That sounds brilliant. And then, so I must have been, how old was I then? About 7 or 8, probably my son's age. And then I just loved the radio from then on. And as I got older and realised it could be a job, I used to bug people by writing letters or sending faxes and stuff like that. I wanted to get in radio, and I got into radio and had a career throughout radio from 1998. I signed my first contract, 9th of November 1998. So coming up for 27 years. And that kind of went all the way through with a few glitches here and there, because radio is not a stable job, until pretty much the pandemic. And I was freelancing at BBC, and the pandemic hit, and they said we can't really use freelancers. And I was like, oh, well, what do I do? And then I saw a job for a podcast producer, and I thought, oh, those skills kind of interlink. And I did that. And then event hosting came alongside being a radio presenter. You'd get asked to do stuff. The podcast, so it's all kind of stemmed from radio one way or another. Yeah. But also, I need to pay bills, and the whole point of this podcast, just being creative and going, oh, that's good, and not thinking, do I fit that? Just going, I quite fancy doing this. How do I do that?
Yeah, so basically just experimenting with different things that actually have ended up making a nice combination of things that you do. Yeah,
I think so. I'm glad I'm talking to you, because that sounds nice, because I for ages I hated LinkedIn. LinkedIn gave me such a complex, because I don't know how to put I don't know what to call myself in that headline that people see, and it's so I'm not that defined.
Yeah, and I know, and I mean I do various different things and have a similar challenge with LinkedIn, and I know that's almost where our conversation started, isn't it? I think when you were first telling people about how do you talk about yourself on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think now? I mean, I guess those conversations were probably about 18 months ago. Do you feel like you've sort of got a bit of a thread now running through all of that? Or
I think I just realised, as with quite a lot throughout my career, probably my life, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's all daft. Everything's daft. Social media in any form is silly. You can't take it we can't take it seriously at all, really.
True.
So I think I always take the work I do very seriously, but I don't necessarily take who I am or everything around that seriously, because, the world started as a piece of rock and dust, and, it was here long before us, it'll be here long after us, and you can't get too bogged down with all that sort of stuff. So for ages it did. I was like, people aren't going to take me seriously on LinkedIn, I'm not going to get these jobs. And now I just go on there and write. LinkedIn is where people go and give advice that nobody has asked for. And I'm not that person.
Yeah.
And I'll give advice if you ask, but I don't think anyone cares about what I've got to say unless they ask me, which is why I agreed to do this.
Yeah, but I mean, I think LinkedIn is a funny place. We've all got all sorts of bits of knowledge that actually people do want to know about, but LinkedIn is sort of, I kind of use LinkedIn as a bit of a it's almost building relationships. It's not so much saying this is what I do. Well, I do use it a bit to say what I do, but actually it's more about commenting on stuff and just continuing to get to know people. So, I mean, as you know, I talk about creativity in kind of two ways. I talk about creative thinking and creative expression. But what does it mean to you, if I asked you to define it?
Creativity? It's just coming up with stuff, I think, which makes it sound so basic. But it is, isn't it? It's just having the freedom. And that is, I think that is where I get, again, not wanting to make this a LinkedIn chat, but that's why I struggled with LinkedIn for so long, because I'd come from radio. I got into radio writing jokes, and I faxed it to the guy who was doing the afternoon show. You know, I'd been trying to get in for ages. Faxed the jokes to this guy who was doing the afternoon show, and he phoned me because I was working in an office and I had letter-headed paper. And he said, "Do you want to write for me every day?" So I'd just make stuff up. I'd just go through the papers, write a joke, a gag about something in the news. Then I'd write my own jokes. And then we had this daily phone-in feature where I would phone and I've written a joke I made up and told. And then I got into radio, and you'd just come up with games, or you'd have, you know, phone in if this is, don't know if you've ever seen a flamingo, or what's the best animal you've ever been licked by, or anything like this. It's just that. There's no boundaries to it. It's just... I remember we used to have sales meetings, and obviously there's all budget constrictions and stuff and that. And my thing was always, if you go in with a huge boulder if you're a sculptor and you've got a huge boulder of granite, then you can chip away and create something from that. If you go in from the start with a pebble, you can't make that bigger. And I think that's what creativity is. It's that thing of going, right, I've got no boundaries yet, let's just see what we come up with. I've got this idea, and they go, okay, well, we've got a budget of £1,000. You go, brilliant, okay, well, we'll hone it down. And I think that's it. Creativity is, and that's why going on LinkedIn was like, oh, this feels a bit more constrained, and I don't like that, until I learned not to worry about that sort of thing. And for me, that's what creativity is. It's just coming up with stuff and seeing where it lands, and then getting people on board with it, and then you go, oh, brilliant, there's another creative mind. Or sometimes not a creative mind, actually, which is what you need. Someone who has that practical, okay, that's brilliant, but it's not going to happen. What about we put these constraints on it? And I would get frustrated and whatever, but go, oh, you've just presented me with another creative challenge there. I'm going to give you an answer. I'm not going to be beaten. Yeah. I always get so excited as well. I'm talking 100 miles an hour because it's my passion as it is yours. Yeah,
because you're talking. Yeah, and I think we come at it from slightly different perspectives, because actually you're the one who comes up with all the crazy ideas, and I can well imagine being in a room, being that person, going, "Yeah, flamingos. He's not going to find flamingos." And I'd go, "How about?" Well, I mean, I'd probably go, "How about penguins?" But
penguins,
I might sort of, I would be the person going, "Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that, but how about this?" And that's why. I mean, that is why people work. It's great to work with different people, isn't it? Because they all have something to contribute.
It's just yin and yang, isn't it?
It is, and different combinations of different kinds of people. So in the things that you do at the moment, those three things, do you have lots of opportunities in those things to come up with all these ridiculous ideas these days?
Do I? Probably, being honest, not as much. The podcasts I produce... Because radio, commercial and BBC to an extent, or probably less an extent, but was pretty much free reign. The thing is, as long as you know, so in terms of broadcasting and podcasting, who your audience lives in this microphone. So you're talking to one person who's in that microphone, or through this camera, down this camera. If you know who that is, then you can come up with anything, because you go, oh, are they going to like, is this going to be for them? Is this for them? So you have that creative realm. And in terms of podcasting, it's a bit more honed, because certainly the ones I make are education podcasts. You're not going to come up with this wacky idea, because that's not what the audience is there for. They're not going to listen to that. So from that point of view, and editing as well, I do one called, which you know actually, with Claire Owen Jones, who is called I Can Do That, which is all about, she takes a film and she looks at the business angle of a film, which sounds quite dry, but actually she'll take a film like Jurassic Park and look at the business aspect of it. Or what's the most recent one we've done? You've Got Mail. there's that, or all these things, and she'll look at the business, and it's brilliant. And that, because of, I co-host it with her, and because of that, and because she just wants it to be fun, I can I'll listen to it as I edit, go, oh, I'm going to put a sound effect in there, or I'm going to get some music there that's a bit silly and stuff, and that's good. But I think maybe I should write a book. I've always wanted to write a children's book, and I don't know, I think it's that freelance thing of you do what you need to make money first and foremost. And I would go, if I'm writing a children's book and I haven't got enough money for food at the end of the week, well, I'm not going to be very popular. But that would be a creative little outlet. Having kids makes you creative anyway. That's where the creativity comes.
And it's funny. I had a couple of conversations with people who said, yes, you know, it is when you have children and they start doing drawing and painting and all sorts of, and you know, my daughter's 8 and she likes making up stories, so she'll write books. She'll just, you know, and they do, don't they? And they kind of, you have to facilitate it and join in and be part of it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the brilliant thing. My kids as well, they write books. My son was also 8 and he wrote a book with his sister, although he's going through that bottoms are funny and, you know, all that sort of thing phase. But it's, just the way their mind goes, and you go, oh, this is great. Because I used to, like say, working in radio or working in a creative office, so not necessarily as a freelancer in my shed. You know, you had that all the time, and when that goes, and when you do work remotely and you work from home, you miss that, and that's why kids are great, because you go, oh, I've got that again, this is brilliant.
They're like your little creative inspiration or creative team.
Absolutely. A creative team, that's exactly it.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll give you some ideas for books once you've got your foundation set up again, and I think I just need to sit down and write. I think as a grown-up, the biggest struggle is to... there's a quote about this, isn't there? It's... I can't remember what the quote is now, but it's about not losing that ability to be a child, you know, to hold on to that. So sometimes I've sat down, I've got all these ideas of books and notepads all over the place, and, you know, very much the archetypal ADHD. If you look at that and go, oh yeah, they've started 17 projects and not finished any of them, and and I've got all these, but sometimes I go, and it goes back to the audience going, well, who's going to read this? And that wouldn't happen. Or is that... And instead of doing that, I just need to go, be a kid, Al, write it. Just don't think about it. And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Someone might pick it up. Yeah. It's going back to that LinkedIn thing, isn't it? Of going, are people going to think I'm a bit silly? And then I made a career out of... I tell my kids it's good to be silly. So, this has turned into therapy. I was going to say, you're talking to the person who draws doodles of strange penguins. So and in fact, I doodled a book about ideas. So, you know,
that's brilliant though, because that's exactly silly. What you should do, because nobody's asked you to do that. Nobody's necessarily commissioned it, and that hasn't stopped you. And that's a brilliant thing, I think. No. It sounds mad. It probably sounds mad to other people, but I think that's inspirational to do that. Yeah, I'm going to flip and write a book tonight.
Yeah, you do it. Yeah, send it to me tomorrow, and I'll have a look.
Yeah,
but I mean, I think the thing is, though, I mean, one of the, you know, I think when I first started getting involved in the kind of world of people working for themselves and being creative, one of the things that I was told was, actually, you can do quite a lot if you do it in 20 minutes a day. So I've done a few things that I wrote. I literally, the first thing I'd do in the morning was 20 minutes on that thing, and then I'd put it away and do my freelance work and pick it up again the next day. I mean, bearing in mind though with that doesn't work for everyone. Yeah,
well, that's happens. The ADHD thing, I got diagnosed in February, so it's really weird. I've just been away for a weekend with all my school friends, 7 of us, who've known, like, one of them I've known since nursery, since we were 3, the others since secondary school. And I was saying, I got diagnosed ADHD. And they were like, what's that then? And it's only when you're trying to explain it out loud. And I'm like, it's a thing. And it's hard, once you go through it, it's like 100 million tabs open. You start all these things, you don't finish them. You don't do the boring tasks because you can't do the boring tasks. You get overwhelmed. There's depression, anxiety that kicks in with that, so that's not great. But I was explaining, and I was like, I'm always late for things. And they were like, we've always all been late for things. And I was like, oh, yeah, there is that. But I think, it's that the tabs thing, like you say, you start things, and like my computer will have tabs open at the top, and my brain will have tabs open in there, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm doing this now. I edit podcasts. I get paid to edit podcasts. And what I love is hearing the conversations and meeting people and helping to coach someone who would present and facilitating that. And then I go away and you just have to cut it down. And so I'll go, right, okay, I'm going to cut this down. And I'll start doing it. And I can guarantee you I'll do it for 5 minutes and then go, why are giraffes' tongues blue? And then I'll Google that. And then I'll go, I met a giraffe when I was at Longleat. Where's Longleat? And then I'll Google Longleat. And then I'll text my mum and go, why did I go to Longleat when I was 5? We didn't used to live near there. And before you know it, it's bedtime. And then I'm like, and it's the night before the deadline, 2.5 weeks later. And I'm like, I'm going to do that podcast now until 1 a.m. There you go.
And there's an insight into a brain with ADHD.
I think this whole podcast has been that. I do apologise. I feel very much... I've not seen another adult human since the school run, so... Yeah. That's
all right. I think it's interesting, though, that actually I... having been in this world for sort of 10 years or so, not this world, the creative world, I mean, creative and entrepreneurs, that... To me, I keep coming across people who go, oh, yeah, I've got ADHD, or someone who's come to me and said, I need your help to kind of shape my ideas and to make me actually do something. Oh, by the way, I've got ADHD, and so to me, it's just something that's perfectly normal, and I know lots of people, but I guess for some people, maybe it's different. Maybe they don't come across it so much.
Yeah, I think it's... So I go off on another tangent, but I got diagnosed with depression and anxiety in 2014, and I've had it since... I know of having it. I recognised it since my early teenage years. And maybe even before, if I look at so that was my first diagnosis. And at the time, Stephen Fry was talking about it. There was a documentary about footballers, because I remember being at my mum and dad's, watching this documentary about footballers with depression and crying, because I was like... That's my thing, and that's why I went to the doctor, because I was like, oh, and somebody else had mentioned it. So it was quite trendy. I mean, not trendy, but you know what? It became more, and it's great that we're talking about it, and we should be. But then ADHD post-lockdown, loads of celebs have come out, and everyone seems to have ADHD. So when I was telling my friends, it just felt like, because out of all the friends, we stayed in this, essentially a hostel in Wales for the weekend. It was a bunkhouse. It's a rough and ready pub with bunk beds upstairs. If you didn't take your own towel, you had to pay £3 for one. And I took, for 2 nights, I took 4 different outfits. And and that's kind of how I always am. I'm the guy who works on radio, they show me off. So when I've got ADHD, I always feel it's a bit sort of, the latest trend. But I would happily not have it.
Yes.
I love the creativity bit and all that. I'd love to be able to finish a flipping project.
Well, that comes back to the whole thing about people with different brains, doesn't it? That different, actually, it's just a case of having the right people around who kind of understand that and go, well, actually, here's some ways you could try to, either focus on this thing or just keep the interest so that actually... you still get to do the stuff that's enjoyable, but you're also making progress as well.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think there's something in that. You're very wise.
Oh, sometimes. So we've kind of been talking about creative. We kind of talk about creative thinking, haven't we? And we've gone off on some related subjects.
Yeah, I'm sorry. we're meant to have been talking about that, yeah.
No, it was all part of it. It's seeing where the conversation goes, isn't it? I was just going to ask about creative expression. So, when I talk, so talking about, rather than just ideas, I guess I'm talking about drawing, painting, writing, the kind of things that maybe people see as being creative. So where the opportunities for that kind of come out in what you do.
Yeah, do you know what? I think probably going back to LinkedIn, it used to be Facebook, and I would write really long Facebook posts several times a day. And now it's LinkedIn, I just go on there. But I love writing. Writing is my thing. And for some reason, I've never done it I mean, I've had articles published, and I used to do a blog, and I'd love it, but it would take me ages because I'd go back and rewrite it and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I loved doing that. And that's where I get creative. If I sit down and start thinking I'm going to write a quick post, it'll go off on one, and then I'll go, oh, can I bring this, go and take it over here, and then can I bring it back to the start and feel quite smug with myself? And so creative expression, I think, has always been the writing, even coming up with ideas for radio, or I once filmed this TV sitcom pilot with some pop stars and actors and actresses. That was all about the writing of the idea, the writing, and it's always that. It's the writing, the scribbling down of the ideas. And even for books that I say I want to write, I've got the notion of the idea. I know and I'll write down the characters or character ideas and the sort of that. But then it's the actual sitting down and doing the rest of a structure feels like admin. Whereas sitting down and writing a post or something, because I know I should be doing something else, is usually when I do it. That's the creative outlet. That's the one where you just sit down and go. And people say that, don't they, when they write novels or whatever. I've only just put this together with doing that.
Yeah.
They say don't overthink it, just sit down and write. Roald Dahl used to say that. I sit down and I write, and something comes out, and then I go over it again. And that's what I do with posts, and actually probably should do with attempt books. Maybe there's a successful author in here who just spends too much time on Facebook and LinkedIn.
But I mean, there were quite a few things there that you've said that have made me think. I think clearly there's storytelling, isn't there? There's you're telling stories with all the things that you do. Yeah,
I hope so. And that's what I love about radio presenting. And when I went to the BBC and I did a local TV show across Nottinghamshire called Notts TV, so the storytelling element that I loved was having guests on. That was the BBC, and the BBC was great because I got to go and report. So I got to do the creative editing as well. I get to go and talk to people and get sound effects and write little stories and write little scripts. And or the Notts TV thing was just having different guests on and going, right, you've got a story. My job is to facilitate that. That's what I'm here for, because it's storytelling, like you say.
Yeah, it's helping people to tell their stories, isn't it, in lots of different ways.
So I was talking to my parents last night, and my dad was like, storyteller, you help people tell stories, that's what your career is. You're a facilitator. And I was like, oh, I've heard of that.
You're facilitating the telling of a story, where you're either telling it yourself in writing or speaking, or you're helping people tell it by asking them questions, or by helping them figure out how to tell it.
Yeah, I like that.
So
I like that. Because I always say, even doing this, I think I know my own story. I'm boring. It's the other people you want to find. Be curious. That's. I think that's part of creativity as well, isn't it?
But I think it's. I think we've probably had these conversations in some variations, haven't we? That. You helped me to. I wouldn't be doing this at all. Well, I might have got to it eventually, but I certainly wouldn't be doing it right now if I hadn't asked you for your help in doing some videos, because I wasn't very confident in doing that. And then and then I realised that actually I quite liked having conversations, because actually that for me, just sitting in front of a computer and talking at a computer just didn't really work. I can do it, but it doesn't really work. That actually where I was best was actually if I was being asked a question, then I could think of something. I tend to be more inspired by what someone else says or an idea, and then it kind of helps me think about what I want to say. So I think that's where that was useful, that realising that conversations were good. And then there's so much more you can do with conversations once you've started having them, because there's content in there and ideas and all sorts of things.
And curiosity, isn't it? And understanding and educating yourself as the interviewer, and learning. I mean, the world would be, not going down a political route, but the world would be a better place if we asked more questions and were more curious than we're on LinkedIn telling people, this is how you do it. Instead of that, go, how do you do it? Is it okay? I remember being after So at school I was a daydreamer, and there was always school report and school meetings with the parents' evening. There it was like, Alistair's a daydreamer. Alistair reverted back to my full name. And the other thing was he needs to ask more questions, ironically, because I was just too shy. I was unconfident as a kid. And then that's my favourite thing to do, despite talking about myself for the past half hour. It's just asking more questions.
That's because I asked you to talk about yourself.
But it's being curious, isn't it? Because you learn more about everything. Of course you do. And I just wish the world was more like that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, because it's not a weakness, it's a strength to show that you're more interested in other people.
Yeah. Well, trying to understand none of us are the same. Trying to understand, those little differences, and just sort of wonder why someone does something like that, or what it is they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing a podcast at the moment, sorry, probably jumping ahead, about it's called Oracy and Beyond, because I didn't know what the word oracy meant until earlier this year. And it is that. It's like it's growing in schools. They're trying to get it more used in schools, because it is just discussing things and asking questions and listening to answers and not judging, and helping people do maths rather than just being told, right, do these sums, go away and try and work it out in your head on a piece of paper. Yeah. And just get stuck in that rut, which is what I did at school. Let's discuss it. Why, though, do we have to do that? And, well, it's because of this, but why do you think it's because of this? Oh, I don't know. Is it because of this? And it's like, how wonderful is that? And it creates such equity. You don't know. You could go into a classroom, 2 minutes after that started, and not know who the shy kid was who was unconfident, or not know who the so-called, top of the class person was, because everyone's discussing it, and that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. In fact, weirdly enough, you said that. I was about to ask you about that, because I was. It's not something I'd heard of until you started talking about it. And then when I looked at it, and then when I listened to the conversations that you've been having on your podcast with people, it's actually really fascinating. It's quite. But they didn't do that when we were at school.
No. It's really recent. There's something called Voice 21, which is the national oracy charity, really. And they've only been going 10 years or so, I think. And Labour, as part of the Labour's pre-election pledge, was to create oracy in schools more. Right. But I hadn't even heard of that aspect, to be honest. And, I was working in news at the time, so covering elections, didn't even know that. But yeah, because I produce some education podcasts, and I want to take workshops into schools so I can work with kids and make podcasts with them, because I did that with my son at his class, at his primary school, and it was ace. And you see the kids sort of come to the fore and that, and even the shy ones, you go, okay, well, there's a way that you don't have to be this big, I'm on the microphone. You can just give some information, Yeah. And a couple of people I work with who is a head teacher or an education consultant, they said oracy is big in schools. So I was like, okay, well, if I need to mention that, I'll mention it, but I'll look into it. And then I was like, wow, for all I wanted to be a radio presenter since I was about 7 or 8, I didn't have my first show till my mid-20s, because I was just so... I wouldn't say I wanted to be a presenter, because I thought everyone would think I'm a show-off or not capable, or I was too shy at speaking out. And I had that with friendship groups. Friends weren't me, and I was just like, there's a group, and I don't think my voice really fits. I'm not going to say out loud. I'll just sit. And I was chronically shy. And I remember going home from first radio station I worked at, and I'm still in touch with everyone. But we went to the pub, and they invited me to the pub, and I didn't say a word, apart from to say, does anyone want a drink? And I remember driving home crying. I was so frustrated with myself, because I was so shy and unconfident. And then I got into radio as a producer, so I wasn't the one behind the microphone, because I was too shy to do that. So I was writing the gags, and I was coming up with the ideas, or I was on the microphone but kind of going like the person laughing in the background. Yeah. And so when I read about oracy and how it gives a voice to everyone in the class, I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to help that, because now I'm this overtly confident and experienced person, and I'm like, if I can help children, and I see it in my own son, my daughter will go up and talk to anyone, and Alfie will be like, why is she doing that? I want to do that. And we went to something at Cadbury World last weekend, and they wanted people to get on stage. They had this like really tiny stage show. They wanted some kids, there's only about 20 kids in it, to get on stage. And Alfie put his hand up and got on stage, but he was mugging to the audience and he was answering questions and then turning around and giving eyebrows. I was like, oh yes, that's amazing, because I would never have done that. And so I started this Oracy and Beyond podcast to understand more about it and to see if I can get into schools and help. But yeah, it's just amazing. It's just talking and listening, basically, but giving everyone a chance to do it. And like you say, we did not have that at school. I remember going up to Mrs. Jeffries when I was in, I don't know, again, about 7 probably. Because we were down in near Evesham at the time. And going up and saying, I don't understand this. Going up to her at the desk, this maths thing, and she would go back and try again. And then I'd go up and she was like, no, that's wrong, go back and try again. And it's like, that's ridiculous. It's that thing, isn't it, of if you
keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same result or something like that.
Yes, that's it. And so if nobody's sort of then talking to you about it and going, okay, well, this is... Okay, how about instead of doing it that way, think about it this way. What could you possibly do differently? And do you know what, as a producer, that was the thing. When I was producing radio presenters, some with big egos, even though it was local radio, I'd have this idea, and I remember having an idea and missing out one of the obvious bits, and then putting it to them, going, "Look, I've got this idea, and I think it would work, but I don't know if it would work like this." And they would go, "Why don't we do this bit?" Which was the obvious bit, and you go, "That's brilliant!" And then they would get really on board with it, and then you're discussing this idea, and it's growing. I think it's that. It's, again, it comes back to what we said right at the beginning, working with other people, having those creative ideas, and then it's I guess, oracy is creativity in one form or another.
Yes, I was going to say, yes, how does it... Because, in fact, I did do a quick search to see how it relates to it, and because it sounds like it's just part of facilitating it, isn't it? Having conversations about ideas, asking the right questions to kind of shape things and generate new ideas.
Because I think, going back to the creative outlet thing that you say, is it writing, is it drawing, is it sculpting? But I had a guest on who was brought about oracy in maths, and that, again, was like just getting people talking. And she went from a 30% pass rate to a 70% pass rate, and then above that. In just one term, in 1 year, through just discussing it. And so it is. So that is creativity, isn't it? It's that creative discussion, problem solving. So, yeah, really, creativity is everything, really. It's not just about crazy ideas.
Well, no, and it is. And it's kind of, and creativity, the idea, I find the whole process of people having ideas quite fascinating, where they come from and kind of how they evolve. But then also the different ways they come out at the end. So some people write, some people paint, things like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, there's no hard or fast rule to it, is there, whatsoever? A lot of my radio stuff used to come out of wordplay. I love wordplay. So I'd come up with an idea for a title and then work backwards and say, right, how can this become a feature or something like that? Or with the salespeople, they'd go, we want to sell a Mini. And I'd go, okay, and then work on the wordplay thing and go, okay, this is how we do that.
Yeah. Because that's another good thing about having children. They do tell silly jokes. We have... I remember driving my daughter, her and a friend, and they were in the back telling each other ridiculous jokes, all about bananas. The whole journey there, it was just jokes about bananas. So can I tell you the joke?
Oh, please. Yeah.
Why did the banana go to hospital?
I don't know.
Because it wasn't peeling very well.
I love that. Yeah. I'm going to tell that to my kids when I pick them up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think that's probably a good place to leave it then. So I will say thank you very much for joining me on Creative Conversations.
Thank you very much for having me and letting me go off on 17 different tangents all at once. It's been fun.
Well, that's going to test my editing skills. Thank you.
It really is.
Bye. So, hi. Thanks for listening. Do you know what? I was enjoying that conversation so much that I completely forgot to ask Al where to find him online. So, I have asked him And he said, you can find him on Instagram, TikTok, and his website is albooth.co.uk. Yes, this was a challenging one to edit, and I've also had to add this bit in. Thanks, Al. Thank you for listening to Creative Conversations. I'm Nina Lenton. I'd love to know your thoughts on today's topic. You can contact me via my website at ninalenton.co.uk.